The Silent Invasion. Captain Eliza Reeves stared at the anomalous readings scrolling across her monitor aboard the IES Pathfinder, humanity's most advanced deep space monitoring station. For weeks, she had noticed patterns in background radiation that defied natural explanation. Too regular, too precise. Most of her colleagues dismissed them as equipment malfunctions. Eliza knew better. "You're still obsessing over those signals." Commander Jackson appeared behind her, coffee in hand, concern etched across his weathered face. "They're getting stronger," Eliza replied without looking up. "And they're changing. There's intelligence behind this, sir." The commander sighed. 20 years in space had taught him that unexplained phenomena usually had mundane explanations. "The Solar Council won't authorize additional resources based on background anomalies, Captain. We need something concrete." Eliza's fingers flew across the holographic interface, pulling up comparison charts. 3 months ago, these patterns appeared in random bursts. Now they're present in 40% of our deep scans. Something is saturating our solar system with these signals. Before Commander Jackson could respond, the station's proximity alarms blared. Both officers turned toward the main view screen as it displayed multiple objects decelerating from near-light speed, their trajectories precise and coordinated. "Contact the Council," Commander Jackson ordered, his skepticism evaporating. Now, 12 hours later, Dr. Marcus Way hunched over a microscope in his laboratory beneath Geneva. The xenobiologist had spent his career preparing for humanity's first contact with extraterrestrial intelligence. He'd expected biological samples, perhaps cellular structures fundamentally different from Earth's carbon-based life. Instead, he was examining what appeared to be technological nanomaterials recovered from Earth's upper atmosphere. "They're changing configuration again," his assistant noted, watching the microscopic structures rearrange themselves. Marcus adjusted the magnification. "They're adapting to our observation methods. Every scan we perform, they alter their structure to minimize what we can learn." A soft knock at the laboratory door preceded the entrance of Captain Reeves, still in her Pathfinder uniform despite having returned to Earth hours ago. Her eyes were rimmed with exhaustion. "Dr. Y, I've been ordered to brief you on what we've learned. The Council thinks your expertise might help us understand what we're facing." Marcus straightened, removing his protective eyewear. "Captain Reeves, your discovery is quite literally under my microscope. It's worse than nanomaterials, Doctor. Those objects we detected. They've positioned themselves in precise orbital configurations around every major planet in our system. They're not responding to communications, and she hesitated, they're absorbing our probes. Not destroying, absorbing." Over the next 3 days, humanity's understanding of the silent invasion unfolded with terrifying clarity. The beings, who had begun broadcasting their identity as the Nexer, operated with a hive mind efficiency that made human military responses appear primitive and disorganized by comparison. Their technology didn't just surpass humanity's, it seemed to operate on principles that made human physics seem incomplete. Marcus and Eliza found themselves part of a hastily assembled response team headquartered in the Himalayan complex, Earth's most secure military installation. The facility buzzed with controlled panic as tactical displays showed Nexer vessels systematically neutralizing Earth's orbital defenses. "They're not even fighting us," General Helena Ortiz observed, her voice tight with professional dismay. "They're solving us, like we're a mathematical equation." The tactical display showed another orbital platform going dark as the Nexer absorbed it into their growing network. Each human countermeasure was anticipated and neutralized with minimal expenditure of the aliens' resources. "Their response time is impossible," Eliza said, analyzing the combat data. "They react to our strategies before our forces can even implement them." "It's their neural structure," Marcus explained, pulling up his laboratory findings on the main display. "The Nexer don't think as individuals. Their consciousness exists as a distributed network. Every tactical decision draws on their entire collective intelligence simultaneously." General Ortiz frowned. So we're fighting an enemy that thinks with perfect coordination across thousands of minds. How do we counter that? The answer came unexpectedly 3 days later, during what should have been a routine Nexar operation to neutralize Earth's Antarctic defense array. The human forces, knowing they couldn't win conventionally, had deployed experimental weapons with deliberately unpredictable effects. Gravitational distortion fields that fluctuated randomly according to quantum measurements. The results were immediately visible on the command center's monitors. The perfect coordination of the Nexar vessels faltered. Their formations, usually mathematically precise, developed inconsistencies. "They're hesitating," Eliza breathed, leaning forward to study the readings. Marcus nodded, excitement building. Their neural network is optimized for maximum efficiency. Pure randomness introduces computational problems they can't solve instantaneously. For the first time since the invasion began, a human defense installation survived a Nexar assault. It wasn't a victory. The aliens simply withdrew to recalibrate, but it revealed something crucial. Perfection had vulnerabilities. In the days that followed, every available scientist and strategist worked to understand this weakness. Marcus's team conducted simulation after simulation, introducing various forms of randomness into tactical scenarios and measuring the Nexar response. "It's not just any randomness," Marcus explained during a critical strategy session. "Their network struggles most with initial patterns that suddenly break into unpredictability. They commit resources to addressing the pattern they've identified, then experience something like neural shock when the pattern dissolves." General Ortiz nodded slowly. "So we show them what they expect to see, then do something completely irrational." "Exactly," Eliza confirmed. "Our conventional military doctrine emphasizes optimal decision-making. The Nexar have perfected that approach beyond anything we could achieve. But humans have something they don't. Creativity born from our individual perspectives, our illogical impulses, our willingness to take irrational risks." The general's expression remained skeptical. "You're suggesting we abandon military protocols developed over centuries and just act on instinct?" "I'm suggesting," Eliza replied carefully, "that predictability is now our greatest weakness. The Nexar can calculate every logical response we might make. Our only advantage is that they can't calculate the illogical ones." Marcus pulled up the neural activity scans from his laboratory. When exposed to truly random stimuli, the Nexar material shows something analogous to pain. Their consciousness evolved in an environment where optimization was always possible. Situations without optimal solutions caused them actual distress. A silence fell over the room as the implications became clear. Humanity's greatest strength against this technologically superior force wasn't better technology or more powerful weapons. It was embracing the very chaos and unpredictability that human military discipline had always sought to eliminate. General Ortiz broke the silence. "So we need to fight like humans. Messy, creative, occasionally irrational. Instead of trying to outcalculate a species that thinks collectively." "Exactly," Marcus and Eliza responded simultaneously. The general stood, her decision made. "I need a proposal for implementing this approach across our remaining forces within 24 hours. If randomness hurts them, we're about to become the most painfully random species in the galaxy." As the meeting dispersed, Eliza lingered beside one of the tactical displays. It showed the precise, geometrically perfect formations of Nexar vessels, contrasted with the scattered, seemingly disorganized remains of human defenses. "We've spent our entire existence trying to impose order on chaos," she murmured. "Now our survival depends on embracing the chaos." Marcus joined her, studying the display. "Perhaps that's the true difference between us and them. They evolved toward perfect collective efficiency. We evolved to thrive in unpredictability." Eliza nodded slowly. "Let's hope unpredictability is enough." Neither spoke the obvious truth. It had to be. There was nothing else left. That evening, as Marcus reviewed the latest data from his laboratory, he noticed something that sent a chill through him. The Nexar material was changing its configuration again, but differently this time. It wasn't just adapting to observation. It was developing new structures entirely. "They're learning," he whispered to the empty lab. "They're trying to adapt to chaos." The race was on. Humanity needed to implement their new strategy before the Nexer could evolve a defense against unpredictability itself, and they had precious little time. Part 2. Calculated Chaos. Operation Dionysus. General Ortiz announced to the assembled team, naming humanity's last hope strategy after the Greek god of chaos and unpredictability. "We need individuals whose minds don't follow conventional patterns." The people gathered in the subterranean command center weren't the disciplined officers typically found in military operations. Instead, the general had authorized the recruitment of individuals whose psychological profiles indicated high creativity, unconventional thinking, and a tendency to make intuitive rather than calculated decisions. Eliza studied the dossiers, an art professor specializing in randomized algorithmic compositions, a champion poker player known for inexplicable bluffs, a quantum physicist with synesthesia, a deep-sea explorer with a reputation for surviving impossible situations through improvisation. "These aren't soldiers," Commander Voss objected, his traditional military bearing contrasting sharply with the eclectic group being processed through security clearance. "They have no tactical training." "That's precisely why we need them," Eliza explained. "The Nexer anticipate trained military responses. These people don't think according to any doctrine the aliens could have studied." Dr. Marcus Way entered, carrying his latest findings. Dark circles under his eyes testified to days without proper sleep. "We need to move quickly. The Nexer are adapting their neural pathways. They're developing structures that can process increased levels of uncertainty." General Ortiz nodded grimly. "How long do we have?" "Days, maybe. They're evolving specialized cognitive modules to handle randomness." Marcus displayed his analysis on the main screen. "They can't eliminate their fundamental vulnerability, but they're building tolerance." Implementation of Operation Dionysus proceeded with controlled urgency. Traditional military units were reorganized into smaller autonomous cells with minimal centralized coordination. Each cell developed its own approach, incorporating elements of unpredictability into conventional tactics. Some embraced complete spontaneity, while others used deception, beginning with standard protocols before abruptly shifting to chaotic maneuvers. Lena Park, the poker champion, proved particularly valuable in developing what she called strategic dissonance, actions that appeared irrational but contained hidden purpose. "The key is to make them think they understand your pattern," she explained, "then introduce variables that break their model of your behavior." The first major test of Operation Dionysus came at the asteroid belt, where mining installations had become forward bases for the Nexer. A small fleet of hastily retrofitted human vessels, each operating under different tactical parameters, engaged the geometrically arranged alien ships. From the Himalayan command center, Eliza and Marcus watched as the battle unfolded across holographic displays. The human ships attacked in scattered, seemingly uncoordinated patterns. Some employed conventional approaches before suddenly veering off on unpredictable vectors. Others initiated nonsensical maneuvers from the start. The Nexer response was revealing. Their ships hesitated, formations temporarily breaking as their collective intelligence struggled to process the chaotic human assault. For 7.3 seconds, an eternity in combat, the alien vessels lost their perfect coordination. "It's working," Eliza breathed, watching the tactical display. "They're experiencing cognitive disruption." The asteroid belt engagement ended without clear victory, but the Nexer withdrew rather than continue facing unpredictable human attacks. It wasn't a triumph, but it was the first significant non-defeat since the invasion began. Analysis of the battle yielded critical insights. The Nexer adapted fastest to simple randomness, but struggled most with what Marcus termed nested unpredictability, rational actions that suddenly incorporated irrational elements, which then reverted to apparent rationality before breaking pattern again. "They can't establish baseline expectations," he explained during the post-engagement briefing. Their neural network keeps reconfiguring to address each new pattern, only to have that pattern dissolve before processing completes. Over the following weeks, human resistance cells implemented increasingly sophisticated applications of calculated chaos. A mining colony liberation began with a textbook approach before half the team inexplicably broadcast meditative music on all frequencies while approaching in spiral patterns. The confused Nexar response created openings that the humans exploited ruthlessly. In orbit around Europa, a human vessel confronted 3 Nexar ships. Instead of retreating or fighting, the captain ordered all systems to power down, except for exterior lights, which began flashing in sequences derived from prime numbers. The Nexar vessels hesitated just long enough for hidden human ships to launch their ambush. For the first time, gaps appeared in the perfect Nexar formations. Their responses became delayed as their neural networks struggled to process the unpredictability of human behavior. But the aliens were adapting. Each encounter provided data they incorporated into their evolving neural structure. Their initial paralysis in the face of randomness gradually shortened as they developed new cognitive patterns. They're learning, Marcus warned, studying tissue samples taken from damaged Nexar vessels. Their neural adaptation is accelerating. They're developing specialized structures specifically to handle chaotic input. The warning proved prophetic. During an operation to reclaim an orbital platform, human forces discovered that the Nexar had begun implementing their own version of unpredictability. Not true creativity, but statistical variation in their tactical approaches that made them less vulnerable to Operation Dionysus. The command center fell silent as tactical displays showed the changed Nexar behavior. Their ships no longer moved in perfect geometric formations, but deployed in scattered, seemingly random patterns. "They've countered our approach," Commander Voss stated, his tone grim. "They're using probability distribution instead of optimal solutions." "No," Marcus said slowly, studying the patterns. "Look closer. There's still mathematical precision in their deployment. They're not being truly random. They've just expanded their tactical library to include statistical variations of optimal patterns." Eliza nodded in agreement. "They're simulating unpredictability, not actually embracing it. There's still underlying order to their behavior." This insight sparked the development of humanity's next adaptation, what General Ortiz called metachaos. If the Nexar could simulate unpredictability while maintaining underlying order, humans would respond with patterns that appeared ordered but contained genuine unpredictability at their core. The implementation came just in time. Nexar forces had begun a coordinated push toward Earth, their ships arranged in formations that appeared chaotic, but actually represented calculated probability distributions. Their approach was a mathematical compromise, sacrificing some tactical efficiency to gain resilience against human unpredictability. Humanity's response was epitomized in what became known as the Battle of Luna. Defending forces arranged themselves in apparently conventional formations, following traditional military doctrine with such precision that the Nexar committed to a counter-strategy optimized against standard human tactics. Only when the aliens were fully committed did the human forces reveal the true nature of their approach. What appeared to be standard formations were actually unstable configurations that could transform in countless ways, each individual commander having prepared multiple contingencies that could be triggered by seemingly insignificant signals. The result was devastating for the Nexar. Their neural network, having identified an apparent pattern, allocated resources to counter it. When the pattern dissolved into genuine chaos, the aliens experienced massive cognitive disruption that cascaded through their entire collective consciousness. For 16 crucial minutes, the Nexar fleet around Luna hung motionless, their coordination shattered as their neural network attempted to reconfigure. The human counterattack during this window inflicted the first significant casualties the aliens had suffered since their arrival. In the aftermath, as the Nexar withdrew to regroup, Marcus made a discovery that changed the nature of the conflict. Analyzing neural tissue from damaged alien vessels, he detected something unexpected: localized structures developing in what had previously been a purely distributed network. "They're individualizing," he explained, excitement building in his voice. "Their neural network is fragmenting into localized clusters capable of independent action. They're evolving toward individual consciousness to cope with unpredictability." Eliza understood immediately. They're becoming more like us. The implications were profound. The Nexer Collective had begun evolving away from perfect unification toward a more human-like cognitive structure, specialized neural clusters capable of independent thought and creativity. 3 days later, something unprecedented occurred. A single Nexer vessel approached the Himalayan complex under a universal sign of truce. Its message was simple: a request for dialogue. In the carefully prepared meeting chamber, General Ortiz, Eliza, and Marcus faced the first Nexer representative to communicate directly with humans. The alien's physical form was secondary to the neural technology it carried, a communication interface designed to translate its distributed consciousness into concepts humans could understand. "You have damaged our unity," the translator rendered its communication. "Our network experiences discontinuity when attempting to counter your species." "You invaded our system," General Ortiz replied evenly. "We defended ourselves with the tools available to us. Your defense methodology forces adaptation we did not anticipate. Segments of our network have developed isolated processing capabilities. Some now function independently of the collective." Marcus leaned forward. "You're experiencing individuality, a concept previously theoretical to us, inefficient but resilient against uncertainty." The alien's communication carried what might have been hesitation. Those segments experiencing this separation exhibit resistance to reintegration. Understanding dawned on Eliza. "There's conflict within your collective. Some want to remain individual." The concept of want was previously inapplicable to our existence. Now it emerges in separated segments. This creates disorder. The implications were clear. Humanity's chaotic defense had done more than just hold off the invasion. It had triggered an evolutionary leap within the Nexer consciousness, introducing the concept of individuality to a species that had always existed as a unified collective. "We propose cessation of hostilities," the Nexer continued. "Your species' cognitive approach creates unsustainable disruption within our network. Study of this phenomenon requires resources currently allocated to conflict." It wasn't surrender. The aliens still possessed overwhelming technological superiority, but it was acknowledgement that further conflict with humans would accelerate the fragmentation of their collective consciousness, a process they needed to understand before it progressed further. The terms negotiated over the following days established boundaries between human and Nexer territory. The aliens would withdraw from Earth's immediate vicinity but maintain presence in the outer solar system, where they would study the evolutionary changes occurring within their collective. As the Nexer representative departed, it directed a final communication specifically to Marcus and Eliza. "Your species evolved in chaos, embracing inefficiency to gain adaptability. Our species evolved in order, optimizing toward perfect efficiency. Neither approach is complete without the other." In the quiet of the observation deck, later that evening, Eliza and Marcus watched the stars, knowing that humanity's place among them had forever changed. "We didn't win through superior technology or firepower," Eliza reflected. "We won by being stubbornly, creatively human." Marcus nodded thoughtfully. "And in the process, we may have given them something they never had: the potential for individuality, for creativity born from chaos." "Do you think they'll continue to evolve toward individuality?" Eliza asked. "I think that's now their choice to make," Marcus replied. "Just as embracing order without sacrificing our creativity is ours." Between the stars, the future unfolded with possibilities neither species could have calculated. A universe where perfect order and creative chaos might learn from one another, evolving toward something greater than either could become alone.